All right. So let's just say one more time that this learning is dedicated to the memory of Geraldine.
Chaya bat Arya Vishaindel.
Zichrona livracha.
Thank you.
So just to wrap up one more pass through on Mishnah 17 in chapter 1 of Pirkei Avot. This is Shimon, the son of Rabban Gamliel, apparently being quoted before he became his own Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. And he has these three portions of his statement. And just to sum up, it's really we're talking about it, and that's ironic, because what he says again and again and again is, let's not talk so much. Let's really just be quiet. And he says the first statement is a negative positive. I never found anything better than, right? So it's a negative, but it really is praise. It's a really appreciation. I never found anything better for a human being than being quiet. So, it's a kind of it's funny that a young person should say such a thing, but, as if he's a man of wisdom from, for decades and decades. But he says, look, I've watched everybody. And this is what I've learned. There's nothing better for a human being than to be quiet. And then he goes into the negative positive of, don't, spend all of your time. The main thing is not so much the delving and the analyzing and the seeking out meanings. The main thing is do something, right? Lo hamidrash ikar ela hamaseh. So again, from a negative to a positive. And then finally, his last statement is a warning, right? The more you talk, the more liable you are to bring about sin, error, some kind of misdeeds. So it seems like he's really serious about this, right? And I just want to give people one last, speak softly and carry a big stick. It depends what you use the stick for, right? If there's anybody,
what? It says carry a big mitzvah.
Oh, is that what it says?
Speak
Good.
softly, carry a big mitzvah.
I didn't see the whole thing. I just saw the beginning, and I immediately went to my known way of remembering that statement. Right. Speak softly, and well, don't carry a big mitzvah. Do a big mitzvah, but even do a little mitzvah. Do a lot of them. Just anybody that wants to say something, I'm going to say how overwhelmed we are today with talking. The technology has made it possible for everybody to talk all the time about anything. We would love the talking to be a vehicle for communication, for connection, for learning, for sharing. But really too often, we as a species have turned talking into poison. And it's a very tragic reality that we live in as I speak. So, sometimes when I ask a question and nobody talks, and I make say, oh, this is like a Jewish science reading room. It's all just very quiet. But there's quiet and there's quiet. And finding some rest, some peaceful centering place that can be a place of positivity, a place of helping a person get healthy, get strong, is really essential. Shabbat is supposed to be a time like that. Very, very pious people in ancient times thought about Shabbat as a day that you shouldn't talk the normal talk that you talk, that you should be careful about just idle chit chat and not use Shabbat as a day for that. And of course, we have a pushback against that, that's very elitist and that's not really human and it's not really appreciating just the great feelings that we have to be with each other, which we yearn for now. So it's a push and a pull. It comes back and forth and back and forth. But this set of teachings is really just again and again and again. It's not 3 different teachings. It's from different angles, seeing the dangers and the deficiencies of talking. So just want to highlight that. And Geraldine, yes.
Isn't one of the, not requirements, but one of the reasons when you give tzedakah, one of the highest things to do it silently without the person who receives it knowing, and isn't that kind of related in that way as well?
Well, I think it's a little bit related in the sense of what do we misuse speech for? If we use our speech or misuse our speech as just honking our own horn and showing off and taking up a lot of space and making sure other people can't talk or something like that. If it becomes just an ego trip, then that's, part of what's not so good about it. And tzedakah or any mitzvah, that's part of the problems with mitzvahs. Mitzvahs are good. So, hey, everybody, I did a good thing. So aren't I good? And I want to be proud and I want to be accepted and I want to be acknowledged and I want to be acclaimed. That's the problem with tzedakah, but it's also an embarrassment issue, right? The point of being quiet and so on with tzedakah is, first of all, it shouldn't be, if you're giving tzedakah, it shouldn't be your own aggrandizement, self-aggrandizement. And number 2, it shouldn't be pointing out that somebody was in need, because that person could be embarrassed about it. They don't want to know other people to know that they're, not in good shape at the moment. So that's the other side of it. So there's more than one person involved. Josie.
Yeah, in my years of doing my column and interviewing ordinary people, which I loved, I learned that very few people, including me, really know how to listen, because we are so busy getting our opinions and our thoughts out. We don't really listen. And I found if I just kept quiet and let the person go on talking, I would get a much better interview.
All right. Yeah, Nick.
Well, this reminds me of the commandment to be holy. It's simply to be holy, and that entails doing. And all the talk kind of takes us away from that at times.
What I think he's also saying is sometimes the doing is not saying anything, is doing. Yeah, Geraldine.
I agree with Josie and with Nick too. But whenever I had parent conferences, a lot of teachers will start out with, telling things about the children. I would never start that way. I always started with, are there any questions that you have that you can ask me first? Because that way I could learn what their concerns were.
Whatever it means, I'm thinking also of back in the good old days, when we could come to a house of a mourner to offer condolences or to offer comfort. And, we have phrases in English, right? An awkward silence is a very common phrase. People are not happy with silence that doesn't get filled up. And of course, the tradition is that when you come to a house that a mourner is in, and you're coming for the sake of that mourner, you're actually not supposed to say anything until the mourner starts saying whatever they want to say. And that's the listening, Josie, what you're talking about. It's actually to be present and just to be there and show up, and then take your cue from the mourner. But I think that we have, unfortunately, in my view, we have a little bit of a fear of that kind of silence, and we don't think we're being adequate. We don't think we're doing what needs to be done. We think that if we don't want to confront the pain itself, the sadness. We don't want to confront our own inadequacy. Many houses of mourning are actually full of the energy of conversations and talkings in all the rooms. And, look, there's something beautiful about that life and about pushing against death by embracing vitality. But the silence part is not as clear to people that has value and meaning as well. So, yeah. Beryl.
Well, that's evidently true, and I've experienced it probably from a very different point of view than anyone in this meeting, because in security interviews, when you're trying to get the perpetrator to incriminate themselves, it's that awkward silence and not filling it and allowing them to fill it when they step into the position where they're going to walk out of there in handcuffs. But obviously, they're not thinking that's what's going to happen, but it's when you're quiet at that moment that you get the most.
Wow. So no wonder we all want to talk. We don't want to walk out with handcuffs on, right? It's like it turns around the whole thing. Just remember, anything you don't say will be held against you. So
no, they don't think that they're walking out of there in handcuffs. They just don't want the silence.
Right.
They feel
right.
it, and
right.
you sit there very quietly,
Right.
and unemotionally,
Right.
and don't recognize any of the really important things they say, other than maybe making a note on a pad that
Right.
you have in front of you. And then you come back to it maybe 10 minutes later when you've gone off in some crazy other tangent, and they'll elaborate further for you.
Right. Carolyn.
I play violin, and I played in many orchestras, and you learn to listen to all of the other instruments so you know when to come in at the right time.
Right.
And when your intonation is correct.
Right. And the silence between the notes is very important.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Enough about silence. Let's yes. Oh, John.
There's one more thing. It's Nick will like this. There's an acting technique called Meisner, which is like being in the moment and really trying to be truthful. And one of the sayings of Meisner is, don't just say something, stand there.
I think the full thing is, don't just say something, stand there and let the lighting designer do the work. Right. That's all. Okay, good. Yeshikoah. So let's move to the next Mishnah, okay? Unless anybody wants to voice a silent objection. Okay. So we're up to Mishnah 18, the last Mishnah in our chapter. And this is said in the name of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. Now let's remember that we just had a Mishnah said that was quoting Shimon, the son of Rabban Gamliel. And this is Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, Rabban Shimon, the son of Gamliel. So is this the same person? The answer is no. the first Shimon became Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, the first. And then he had a son who he named after his father. And that was the second Rabban Gamliel. And then that second Rabban Gamliel had a son who he named after his father. And that was the next Shimon, the son of Gamliel. So this actually causes sometimes some trouble in figuring out which of these generations is being represented. But the consensus is that now we're at the second Shimon ben Gamliel. So this is, as I say, a couple of generations later. And he's like I say, the second one. He lives in the 2nd century CE. Okay, so the first Shimon ben Gamliel lived in the 1st century CE. Okay. Okay, who's going to read for us today? Geraldine, go right ahead. Good, that makes sense.
The world rests on 3 things: on justice, on truth, on peace. As it is written, with truth, justice, and peace shall you judge in your gates. Zechariah 8:16.
Very good. Okay, so that's the one translation. Josie, you have the other translation? Okay, what do you got?
I have the Shapiro.
Right.
Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel teaches 3 things ensure the world's survival: justice, truth, and peace. As it is said, speak truth, establish peace, and render honest judgments in your gates.
Okay, any big gigantic differences? I don't know that I see anything that's jumping out for me in hearing it. It's interesting to me that
The version I have is in a different order.
yeah, in the Hebrew, the order is different. And I'm surprised that both of those translations have in common the fact that they decided that they wanted to change the order. John, you want to read it? Go ahead.
Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel used to say, on 3 things does the world stand: on justice, on truth, and on peace. As it is said, execute the judgment of truth and peace in your gates.
Okay, so what did you say was switched?
Judgment is first, judgment of truth. I mean, it sort of conflates 2. They're not sort of 3 independent things.
So I actually was thinking that that's 3 translations that have in common the fact that they changed the order that I'm looking at. In the Hebrew, it says, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says, Al Shlosha Dvarim ha'olam kayam. The world is established or exists or endures based on 3 things. And the first one is, what do we have in our translations?
Hadin, al hadin.
And I have al ha'emet.
No, emet is first, truth.
Right. So in the translation, it keeps saying justice, right? As the
Yeah.
first one, the first of the 3. So I don't know why they did that. The first one in the Hebrew is truth,
Then
emet, then din,
Just,
right? That's justice, right? And then shalom is peace.
well, that makes more sense.
Mine is different. Mine has din first.
In the Hebrew.
Yes. Al hadin vi al ha'emet vi al shalom.
Look at that. Very interesting.
But it
Okay,
comes-
They
so
got their Ben Gamliels mixed up.
yeah, hold on one second. That I didn't realize that I wanted to check that out.
That's
Okay,
right.
I took it for granted. That's the way I know it. But let me see if it's noted that that's a different that there's a different reading. Hold on a second. 1 second, just bear with me. to
But
go
then
through-
it has an extra line, Rabbi.
Yes,
It says, Shene Amar Emet Mishpat Shalom
Shiftu
Shiftu
b'sham yechem. Yes, we had that. That's everybody translates that.
B'sha'arichem.
Right. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Yes, in certain readings, that's the order. What can I tell you?
Hmm.
All right. So
That din is first.
that din is first, yes. So before we get to the three things, or while we get to all the three things, this hopefully reminds us of an earlier statement that we encountered. If we go all the way back to the second Mishnah in our chapter, a different Shimon is quoted. Okay, so go back to chapter 1, Mishnah 2, please. Okay, Craig, what do you got?
And that's on.
Shimon the Just was one of the last survivors of the Great Assembly. He used to say, upon three things the world is based, upon the Torah, upon divine service, and upon the practice of charity.
Okay,
And
so it
don't-
sounds a little similar, right? Three things, the world is standing on three things. So in the Hebrew, it's omeid, the world stands literally. In our quotation, which comes some 300, 400 years later, we have another three things that the world is sustained by. Some people have translation of stand also, right? Which would be just a really
No.
not a good idea because it's too similar to the other one. But kayam is the Hebrew, right? Kayam endures, is maintained. Yes, Josie.
This is really different. It says, he used to say the world rests on three things: wisdom, on surrender, on compassion. And next
Okay.
to surrender, I have a note that means service. Is that?
Right, avodah. So avodah is service, which could mean so many different things. And surrender is a nice, actually a nice little word to throw in there. When we serve God, when we worship God, is there an element of surrender that we should be putting into that? That's something to think about. But that's
Yeah,
not what we have here. What?
The little I know of Islam, that's a big thing in Islam.
Well,
Surrender.
guess what? We do some bowing in our traditional prayers also. We're bowing to God. We're bowing down to God. We're showing that we are, surrendering to God's greater glory.
I think
Yeah.
they use the word submission.
That's what Islam means, supposedly, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Geraldine.
This is the Siddur Sim Shalom, the old one. It says the world rests on three things: on Torah, on service of God, and on deeds of love.
Okay. So we've got some interesting things, but we're not going backwards too much. The reason that we went back there is just to pay attention to it in comparison to what Shimon ben Gamliel, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel is saying. Is it the same thing? Is it a reiteration? There's a different focus, no? So who would like to try to expand on what's the focus of this later authority? In what way, how is it the same? How is it different than what we had before?
This seems to be more legal than anything else now.
So what do you mean by legal?
Well, truth and judgment versus Torah and service.
And maybe also that, in the previous one, really specifically talking about Torah and God and our relationship to God. Here, in some ways, it seems, right, this more abstract, legalistic kind of view.
Okay, so where, if we take the legal just for a second before other people want to talk, who is the audience?
Seekers of wisdom.
Who is being addressed? Where is the legal realm? And what realm is the first Shimon HaTzadik, Shimon the righteous? What realm of human life is Shimon HaTzadik focusing on, that we could distinguish from the realm of human living that Rabban Shimon Gamliel is focusing on. Yeah, Craig.
I would think
John.
that, yeah, at the time of the first one, Rabbi Shimon, the temple still stood. And so you could speak of avodah in terms of a temple sacrifice. By the time we get to Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, the temple has been destroyed. In fact, probably been gone for well over a century. So now the focus has to change.
Yeah, probably not quite a century, but yes, there is no temple. There's a big change in the reality of Jewish living. Yeah, John, you wanted to say something.
It seems more, I guess the word's not secular, but more universal, or more or less concentrated on Judaism. It's more of a universal thing. I mean, it's interesting that at that time they were in Babylon, right? So they're in.
They're not in Babylon. They're in the land of Israel.
Oh, but there's no temple, so there's no Israel, right?
Well, there's Israel. It's a Jewish people, and they're living in the land of Israel, but they don't have a temple.
Anyway, it seems to me more not so Jewishly focused. It's more universal statements.
Okay, yeah, Josie, you got on mute. Yeah.
I see the difference that in Shimon HaTzadik is talking about one's personal relationship.
No, now you're muted. You muted yourself. Josie, nobody can hear you. I can't hear you. Anybody else hear her?
No.
Okay,
Losing my sound here. I'm
there you
sorry.
go. Now you're back.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Thank you. The second Shimon sounds more like he's talking about big issues out in the world rather than your personal relationship with Torah and God.
Yeah, I think that goes with what Lou was saying. The legal system is a big social realm. It's about, and if we look at the words that are being chosen by each of them, what is the world sustained by is what this second Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says. This is a law, a kind of a, when we say law and order, if it wasn't for law and order, the society would fall apart. It would be chaos. He's talking about a bigger picture of groups of people getting along with each other. And therefore, he talks first of all about the fact that we need, well, let's take my reading, my text, emet. Emet comes first, truth, right? Don't traffic in false facts. Don't traffic in alternative facts. Don't traffic in supporting conspiracy theories and things like that, which are all based on not trusting somebody else. Just get to the truth. The truth is necessary for any functioning society to be able to live together, right? Then din, let a person know that the judges will be fair, that the judges will give a true determination of the law without favoritism, without any kind of agenda, right? And therefore peace, so that there's peace among all of us. Shimon HaTzadik, Simon the Righteous, before was talking in terms that could equally be used as social qualities, but also as individual qualities. And, saying that the temple was there or not, we use the word avodah, service, right now. Oh, forgot, sorry. Thank you, Jen. So too much talking. This is too much talking leads to sin. And I overstepped the bounds of the time for this session. So I apologize. Okay, so we'll have to continue this next time. Looking forward to it. Thank you. Sei gesund.
Thank you.